All right, sound test. For those who are tuned in, can you hear me okay? Let's make sure that we have audio. Okay, great. Let's officially get things started here. This is the 7th installment of the Notes and Accords series, and we are focusing on the fabled Fougères, a family of fragrances for which many of you are quite fond of from my various conversations on past live streams, on different social media platforms, and for many of you whom I know personally, we've had some great discussions on the great Fougères in perfume history. So as always, we're going to start the first hour by discussing the construction of a Fougère. What does the perfumer do in creating the accords that make up a Fougère? So we're going to talk about the naturals and synthetics that are involved, those that are available to the perfumer's palette. And then in the second hour, I'm going to be going over about 21 different Fougères in my collection. There will, of course, be many omissions. So do not fret if one of your favorites is not included. But I will be discussing a number of them in the second hour of this live stream. We have 14 people who are tuned in right now. And if any of you want to share your scent of the day, scent of the afternoon or evening, please, I encourage you to do so to start conversation. And as always, I'm going to pick your brain and ask you some questions to test your knowledge on the Fougère. So I'm going to take a look at the chat here and see what's going on. Once again, I do apologize for the slow start and the audio/video issues. I'm glad that we have things up and running. Let me know if the sound levels are okay. If the music is too loud, I can certainly turn that down a little bit to a better level. In fact, I can do that right now just so that we have a somewhat better balance. So we have it as more of an ambient background rather than in the foreground. All right, let's see who has hopped in. My good friend Travis. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in to this live stream. We have Bilbo Fraggins, Mega Ren. He was letting us know that my audio was an issue. I thank you for the help. And Yoshi from the Mr. Smelly live streams. Our good friend Yoshi is here. We have Pat Lester. Wonderful to see you as well. Loving the dog avatar, looking sharp. And Antonio Hobson, welcome. Scent of the day, Rosendo Matu, number 1. Yoshi is already ahead of us. He is mentioning lavender, geranium, and vetiver as just 3 of the notes that can appear in Fougères. We have the wonderful Noah Drucker, the wonderful and very knowledgeable and intelligent Noah Drucker. We've had some great conversations. Scent of the day was Darren Allen, Songe Fleur. Scent of the night for dinner out is Amouage Imitation Man. Lovely stuff. Yoshi, we have Ambre Sauvage by Anik Goutal. So is that actually Ambre Fatiche? Or is actually, there is another Ambre, isn't there? There is an Ambre Sauvage. Yeah, I have never tried that one. I'm only familiar with and am quite fond of the Ambre Fatiche. I know, this is excellent. I'm glad that you can make it live instead of in an archive. Thank you, Noah. Yes, there is about 21 that I have at my side that we'll be chatting about in the second hour. Megaran says, hey all from Melbourne, Australia. Scent of the day, Calvin Klein, Obsession for Men. Will collect Caron pour un homme. Le Soir Intense, and Chopard, Rose Malaki from the mall today. Can't wait. God, I love that enthusiasm, that endorphin rush, that adrenaline rush, that the dopamine rewards that come from adding some new things to your collection. Don't I know that feeling? It is a great one. And then you get that first spray and it's just euphoria. It is my absolute pleasure. I know it when I see it. Supply and demand, gonna spray. My fave, Fougère Royale. And of course, we're going to be talking about Fougère Royale. It was one of the first on the market before there was even something called a perfume market. It was that long ago. And Pat Lester says, Scent of the Day descend from Les Abstraits. We have 18 people tuned in. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us for this Notes and Chord stream for Fougères. Let's get this started. Let's kick things off by asking you, the viewers, some questions. What would you say are at least the 2 accords in a fougère that are absolutely necessary for it to be a fougère? What are the 2 that you think are absolutely necessary, that it wouldn't quite be a fougère without these 2? Let's hear what you have to say. We have the old-fashioned dandy, Scent of the Day, Navis by Navitus, or Navitus, and the illustrious Fernando Soto. Hola, back to you, my dear friend. Always great to see you. So, once again, 2. We already have an answer. 2 that are indispensable in constructing a fougère. We have AM. Great to see you, AM. Lavender and oak moss. Great answer. We have Deluxe Lex here. Howdy, Scent of the Day, Gucci Nobile. Could be a contender for a great fougère in history. The long discontinued and now highly coveted wonderful Gucci Nobile. Lavender and Clary Sage. Good answer. I will test you on the Clary Sage as much as I love Clary Sage. We know lavender. But Clary Sage, we could take her to leave it. But it is often in a fougère, and it often complements the lavender and the bergamot at the top. That's that great synergy that comes from the Clary Sage that comes into the heart and seamlessly blends that bergamot, citruses, and lavender into the heart of the fragrance. We have Yoshi Yoshi here. Yes, this is very similar to Amble Fetiche, but different in the top. It has more herbal vanilla top line. Sounds quite lovely. Oak moss and coumarin. That's another great answer. Some would argue that all it takes is oak moss and coumarin. Great. Megaren, lavender and tonka, which is interchangeable with coumarin. We'll get to that in a little bit. Another great answer. And Clear Zimberlin, wonderful to see you. Always a pleasure to have you as part of the live streams. Lavender and coumarin. Great answer. Lavender and vetiver. Lavender. We've already established it. Definitely lavender. You cannot have a fougère without lavender. I am sorry. You just can't. Otherwise, it might be something else. It might be an aromatic. That just happens to have other aromatics, but no lavender. Vetiver, though, vetiver can often appear in a fougère, but it is argued that it isn't required. But it's a good answer, though. We have AM here. Saying hello to his cohorts. Everybody saying hello to each other, which I love to see. Love to see everybody communicating with each other. Thank you very much. These are little salamanders that are on my shirt. Thank you, Claire. So far, the best answers that I've heard will actually make up 3 of which I think are indispensable. Lavender, coumarin, and oak moss. Now, there are even some that would debate that it only takes lavender and coumarin. Some would debate that all it takes is lavender and oak moss. And there's even a few detractors out there who want to, just to be contrarian, say that coumarin and oak moss. But I personally think that lavender needs to make some sort of appearance. But when we get into a little bit more of the discussion on fougères, you'll find that there are even some people who think that there are 2 things that are the only things you really need. And one of those things is something that we haven't even mentioned because they're aromachems. And what they're called are salicylates. We're going to talk about those. Salicylates. The classic fougère has something called salicylates. And when we get into starting to talk about the different perfume materials, we're going to really talk about salicylates because they do make up a big part of that classic fougere. We're talking about the fougères that started with Fougère Royale all the way into the 70s and 80s. Fern. Well, here's something. Many people claim that no ferns, have a scent. But as a matter of fact, there are a few species that do. And those species, they include the fragrant wood fern, the Latin name Diradoris fragrans, which I think is native to Europe and other parts of the world. And there is one that's native to North America and is particularly abundant where I live here in New England, and that is the hay-scented fern, which is Densitidia punctilobula. And just as the name suggests, it does smell like hay on hot summer days, and especially so when you crush the foliage. So think about it, hay. So hay, coumarin, hay has a lot of coumarin in it. So just stay with me here. I would venture to guess that this fantasy that many of us, I mean, even Luca Turn has said it's a fantasy note. Really renowned. Jean-Claude Ellena has said it's a fantasy note. But there actually are scented ferns, and those scented ferns smell like hay. Coumarin, put the two together. I think we're onto something. I think maybe they were inspired by the actual smell that they experienced around certain fragrant ferns. Travis changed his answer from earlier, lavender and geranium, which I think is a great answer as well, because most fougères also contain geranium. So geranium is another one of those that I think is indispensable, but many would argue that you need only have, if we're talking about three, lavender, oak moss, and coumarin. Bilbo Fraggins, Club de Nuit Intense is my favorite fougère. And we have 27 people tuned in. Why don't we get started in talking about these raw materials? I have a box full of them right down here. I'm going to pick this up. We're going to start chatting about it. About them. And what do I have here? This is coumarin in the crystal form, courtesy of Perfumer's Apprentice. It is in the form of a crystal, which you may or may not be able to tell, but you can probably hear it. That's the sound. Ooh, ASMR, coumarin ASMR. This is indispensable for a fougère, coumarin. Now, who can tell me what was the first synthetic used in a perfume, and in what perfume was that synthetic used? Now, for the first person who can answer that, you will, it's on me, get a free sample pack. Let's see who gets that answer. We're going to give it some time here. Bergamot is just like geranium. Most of the time it's there, but one can argue that you don't need bergamot. You may always experience some citrus, but it isn't 100% necessary. But then again, bergamot is in almost every fragrance, even if it is just an accent. Let's see. Bilbo, your answer is Nautica Voyage? Or are you just mentioning Nautica Voyage as your scent? I thought, or Nautica Voyage is another one of your favorite fougères. I'm going to ask the question again. We have 24 people tuned in. Oh, just a reminder as well. We have a pin at the top, buy me a coffee. If you don't win this, you can, for 6 coffees, get a sample pack. And then for 12 coffees, you can get a 4 full bottle grab bag plus a sample pack. US only, please. Check out the pinned comment, and that will give you the link to the Buy Me a Coffee. Pat Lester says the answer is Lina Lowell. As a matter of fact, it is not. Lina Lowell is actually, any kind of synthetic Lina Lowell is nature identical. and it was used synthetically a little bit later than this one. So the question is, we got 26 people tuned in. You can get a sample pack from me if you get this answer correctly. What was the first synthetic? You have to get both, though, not just one. What was the first synthetic used in fragrance and perfume? And in what fragrance was that synthetic used? So from here onward, I'm not going to give it away until somebody gets both. You got to make sure to get both. And we have a winner in Stanchik. Please let me know if I've pronounced that correctly. You are the winner, Coumarin Fougère Royale. If you were outside of the U.S., you were not eligible for the sample pack. And I always forget that because I'm a bozo. But if you are outside of the U.S. and you're on Instagram, get in touch with me. We can arrange something else as a replacement for that. But you are the winner. Now, if you are not in the U.S. and another person got it, then that person can get the sample pack. So sorry, I should have been clarified that, but we'll work something out if you're outside the U.S. If you're in the U.S., you'll get a sample pack. Just let us know. Fernando Soto, super sticker. I am grateful. Thank you very much for that. All right, my friend, we could still arrange something else if you're interested, but Yoshi is in the U.S. and also got the answer, which is Coumarin, and Coumarin was used in Houbigant Fougère Royale in the year 1882. Thank you. We will be talking about Fougère Royale in the next hour. So we have the Coumarin and tonka bean can also be used. But here's the thing about tonka bean. It's mostly Coumarin. In fact, if I get my little vial of tonka bean here, it's crystallized into Coumarin. But tonka bean also has other components in it. As we know with naturals, they're almost perfumes unto themselves. They're going to have many other types of components, other not materials, but other chemicals that are in it, chemical compounds. So you may have a little bit of linalool in it. You may have a little bit of linalool acetate in it. You may have a little bit of alcohols in it, ketones. If you just look at the gas spectrometry, there's going to be a whole variety of things that are in tonka bean, for which I have not memorized. You'd have to be a savant to memorize it. But it's predominantly Coumarin, which is why most of the time, when you have a tonka bean note in commercial perfumery, it does end up actually being pure Coumarin. They may add some other things as well to kind of spruce it up. Maybe a little Hey Absolute. Lavender has a lot of Coumarin in it as well. So that's the Coumarin. And then there is oak moss. Now, true or false, oak moss is now banned in perfumery. True or false, oak moss is now banned in perfumery. We have 23 people tuned in. Surely some of you can chime in and give me your answer. We'll have a few people answer before I give it away. So, anybody else? We got a couple of answers here. Let's see. Don't be shy. I should see 21 more. We had 2 who answered. Let's get some more answers. All you have to do is type true or false. Come on, do it. You know you want to do it. Go ahead. I assure you I will not tell anyone, Anne. Come on, let's get some more. Let's get some more. Let's get some more. All right, we're not going to keep people waiting much longer. We got a few good answers here. And that good answer is false. It is false. Yes, Carlos, good to have you here. False. Sorry. Bum, 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 bum. Sorry, it's false. It's false. And false. And this is a true statement, Travis. A certain amount so it's restricted. Yes. Yoshi clarifies that it's restricted, heavily restricted. But we're going to get into a little bit of that because over the past several years, there has been a lot of grief on the restrictions to oak moss. Now, I'm the first to say it is upsetting that it needs to be restricted to the level that it is because it makes it a lot more challenging for the perfumer. It really does. It can make things a little bit more expensive as well because, truthfully, just having a little bit more of that oak moss makes a difference. But this is the thing about oak moss. It is a very high impact material and a very little amount goes a long way. So not all is lost. We still have that opportunity to use that fraction, which I do think, as of the most recent IFRA guidelines, is at, and somebody might want to correct me if you're a perfumer, is it 0.1% non-atronol? Oh, and if you want to know what atronol is, that is the chemical component in oak moss that is allegedly so dangerous as a skin sensitizer, even though very few people have any serious reaction to it. But you can even use non-atronol, chlorinatronol oak moss, and it's still restricted. Sorry, you were wrong, Bilbo. False from Cuddy J77DD. Good to have you here. False from Clear. Great to have you here, Ricardo from Portugal. Natural moss is banned. Not banned. It's good news for everyone. Good news for everyone. It still can be used. That's up for debate, and I still have never tried that. And I'd like to try de viris or de vivri. Would that be in French, de vivri? Or de viris? Or is it French? Or is it Latin? I think maybe it's Latin. I don't know. Roman? I don't know what I'm yammering off about. Roman would be Latin. Yes, so there is oak moss that can still be used in perfumery. There's also something called Furfuracea, which is tree moss, Auvernia furfuracea. I think there's also another Latin name. Tree moss can be used in combination with oak moss to extend the oak moss. It is another type of... I almost gave away my next thing. What is oak moss? Is oak moss a moss? Is it a type of moss? Is it the type of moss, the furry, velvety, fuzzy green stuff at the stumps of trees? Is it? Or is it something else? Can somebody tell that was almost a disaster. Can somebody tell me what is oak moss actually, botanically speaking? Bilbo says, I want my fragrance to damage my skin. That's how you know it's working. You just put thick dollops of that oak moss. Just bypass the fragrance and just put the actual oak moss on your skin. Layer it up, like butter it up, just like really thick, and leave it there. Wrap it up, leave it there. Don't clean your hand for several weeks. Just leave it in like this wrap, and then see if maybe you get a reaction from it. And then that's the reason why it's so heavily restricted. If you get a little rash. Yes, Tom is correct. It is a lichen. And Cuddy J77DD also got the correct answer, and also Carlos. It is actually a lichen, a symbiotic organism that actually is a fungus and algae working together, coexisting. So there's oak moss, but here's the thing. People think, some of these fragrance nerds out there, back in the day, they used nothing but oak moss, and they used to put tons of it in the fragrances, like 20% of it was oak moss. And Nope. It never was that much. It never was, because oak moss is a really high impact material. A very little amount makes an impact in the overall composition for the perfumer. So even as a cost measure, long before anybody moaned about restrictions, a lot of your favorite fougères actually had more of this than the actual oak moss. The oak moss might have been there, but then this magical ingredient, which is called Evernil or Viramoss. And that's also a powder. And more Evernil was used because it was during a time where fragrances they tended to be more mossy. You know, a lot of reformulations weren't even so much only because of the restrictions to oak moss, but also to an attempt to keep relevant and modern older fragrances. And I know that doesn't seem to make sense, but we're talking about businesses who want to move units. They want to still sell things. They want new audiences because older audiences start to phase out. They start to pass away. Okay, boomer, you're not buying them anymore. And I'm just saying that facetiously. I never seriously say, okay, boomer. I hate wholesale generational bashing. But there have been attempts to get a wider audience, so they would lessen it. They would make it a little less mossy to reflect the trends, you know, especially in the 90s where you're starting to have more aquatic fougères. So the truth is that most of the time there would be some oak moss, some Avernia prunastri, and then there would be more Evernil to extend it. Some other things that are used these days to reconstruct oak moss in a way that kind of brings it back to its former glory, which does still happen, is by using a combination of the minimal amount of oak moss or tree moss that is acceptable, Evernil, something else which is a fascinating material, and it's actually called orsanil. And it's a very potent material, and very little of it really actually needs to be used. It's called actually Orsanil 3, Orcinyl 3. And Orsanil 3, it brings that typical oak moss note and reinforces the character of that absolute in ways that, it's impossible now when you can't use as much of it. So they'll use the little bit of real oak moss, the Evernil, the Orsanil, vetiver and patchouli can build upon that as well. Tripler, welcome. You and me both. Tripler's last good fougere was Dorian by the marvelous Darren Allen. We're going to be mentioning that one a little bit later. So yes, that is oak moss. So your oak moss is not just the oak moss absolute. It could be some tree moss absolute. It could be some Evernil. It could be some Orsanil with some vetiver and patchouli and some alchemy from the perfumer to really recapture oak moss within the restrictions. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes not so much. Really depends on a few different factors. It depends on the level of dedication. It depends on whether or not they want to put the effort and the research and the money into preserving older fragrances, which is not always the case, as we know. We have people like Thierry Wasser from Guerlain, but we don't have that all the time. If you have some large conglomerate like Puig, who owns not only Puig, but also L'Artisan Parfumeur and Penhaligon's and so on and so forth, you got a lot of number crunchers, you got a lot of people who, a lot of accountants, and they don't want to spend the extra money. They want, the widest profit margin possible. So with a lowly, older fragrance like Quorum, they're not going to really invest as much time in having a perfumer reconstruct it with the restrictions. It's just, let's just have like somebody at IFF do a hack job, because it's not that important. They might just discontinue it anyways. Evernote. Evernote's not your enemy. Oak moss is wonderful, but don't give in to the belief that perfumery is necessarily ruined uniformly because of the restrictions. In a perfect world, I would prefer that there aren't the restrictions, but I have faith that a lot of perfumers are able to work around that. So we already talked about two that are big parts of constructing fougères, and then we have lavender. Oh, there's also, I wanted to mention a lot of different variations of coumarin. For example, this is Coumarix DB, which is produced by IFF. Some of them are creamier, some of them are powderier, some of them are more tobacco-like, some are more hay-like. There's a lot of different variants. This is from Lavandula angustifolia, the Latin name for the lavender that we use in perfumery. This is a lavender absolute. This is a solvent extraction of the aromatic material that comes from lavender. And this is one of my favorite materials. I love the smell of it. It really does smell like the actual lavender flowers, whether they're fresh or dried. Beautiful stuff. It's used in conjunction with the essential oil in creating lavender accords. And there's also some ancillary materials that are also really useful. This is produced by Bedukian. Don't be dirty. It's Bedukian. I think it's actually an Armenian name, but they produce a lot of different materials for the perfumer. This is lavender aldehyde. So lavender aldehyde can enhance your lavender. And there are even facets of wet dirt or ripened fruit in the earth, like rain, like rainy, like damp lavender, woody, herbal, even some tomato leaf. It's very powerful and herbaceous with that telltale lavender aroma. This is a great extender for lavender. This is a great way. It's powerful and diffusive, and it can take the lavender into much later into the development, whereas like natural lavender may fade a little bit more quickly. So that's lavender aldehyde. 26 people tuned in. Do not forget to hit the like. If somebody can give me a tally on the likes, we have 27 people tuned in. Let's try to aim for 27 likes. UK says, please try De Viris. It's a masterpiece. You'll be surprised 100%. One of the richest scents of the 1980s. You have me really curious. Mousse de chêne. Yes, in French, oak moss is mousse de chêne. Chêne is oak. Mousse is moss in French. Felix Weiss, good to see you. Sometimes I think the really simple structured fougères are the best, like Chanel Pour Monsieur. So Chanel Pour Monsieur is sort of like a hybrid between a fougère and a chypre, what I kind of like to call chigère. And I decided upon chigère because foupre isn't quite as appetizing. Mousse Luminé is very nice. Yes. Here's the clary sage. Clary sage can be another one that is used in perfumery. Here's a nice oil. You can pick up your own clary sage oil. At a Whole Foods, at a co-op, at a nature food store, at a, one of those gigs. You can pick up some clary sage oil. And of course, there's geranium. I really go at length in describing geranium in my most recent video, Geranium and Fragrance, 10 geranium fragrances. You can get a lot more detail on geranium just by viewing that video, but there is geranium. Bear in mind, it is Pelargonium graveolens. And there's also like a lot of other materials as well that enhance geranium, that give geranium-like effects. So I think I have like a couple of them sitting here. I didn't really want to get into too much detail with those, but general acetate, general formate, general acetone, so on and so forth. A lot of different ones that are used. So there's geranium, there's clary sage, there's lavender, there's coumarin, there is oak moss, and then the salicylates, which to me, the best fougères have the salicylates. So salicylates, you ask, what are they? Well, we're not going to do a chemistry lesson tonight. I might do a separate video just on salicylates in the future. But we're going to talk a little bit about the salicylates. And one of the ones which is the classic salicylate that's used in a fougère is called amyl salicylate. Oh, I also want to mention this is a beautiful extraction of lavender called lavender fleur. This is a French extraction. Gorgeous stuff. If you want to smell like something that smells like the pure flowers, the top notes and everything. I don't know if this is still being sold at Perfumer's Apprentice, but this is lavender fleur. And this is co-extracted in France. Oh, heavenly stuff. Back to salicylates, though. Let's see if I can grab my amyl salicylate here. Oh, Vetamoss. This is kind of cool. Vetamoss is actually, I think it's a base, but it's a cool base because it takes some aspects of oak moss and vetiver. Really great stuff. But it smells like 1 + 1 = 3. It's like more than just oak moss and vetiver together. It's cool stuff. Here it is, amyl salicylate. Amyl salicylate. As opposed to amyl nitrate. For anybody who's in on the joke. If you know, you know. It's amyl salicylate. And amyl salicylate, it's herbal, it's floral, it smells like fresh clover leaves. If you smell certain scented azaleas, they smell very much like amyl salicylate. There's a greenness to it. There's almost like a cocoa kind of aspect to it, an undertone, not very forward. And it's really widely used. It occurs in nature in Osmanthus absolute, go figure. We don't really hear much about Osmanthus in fougères, but I'm sure there's some fougères out there where perfumers have included an Osmanthus accord. Stefan Arctander, the famous Stefan Arctander, for those who know, he describes it as sweet, herbaceous, green, slightly floral odor. It's very tenacious, woody, earthy, with these sweet, dry out notes. It's extensively used in fougères and florals, in adding a little fleuve to carnation, hyacinth, orchid, trèfle, which is clover in French, and almost inevitably, according to him, in fougère types. One of the most important perfume chemicals, and that is amyl salicylate. And in the next hour, which is coming up pretty soon, I'm going to talk about some of those early fougères, and the reason why they smell the way they do is because of that characteristic amyl salicylate. And then there's also isoamyl salicylate, which is an isomer, another chemistry term, an isomer of amyl salicylate, which is also sweet and balsamic and herbal and floral. It adds different hues, quote unquote. You also have benzyl salicylate, which is a sweet floral balsamic ingredient. That's often used in fougères and even more so in florals, especially when we're talking about jasmine. And if you smell it, you'll identify it right away because it is the smell of suntan lotion when it's isolated. And there's others, there's several. There's hexanol salicylate, all these different kinds of salicylates that are used. There's even methyl salicylate, and methyl salicylate is pretty much wintergreen. Wintergreen oil is mostly methyl salicylate. And actually some varieties of fern contain it. So those scented ferns have a little bit of that salicylate scent. There you go again, hay smelling salicylates. It isn't any wonder that the fougere was invented. Think of it this way too. If you're familiar with the smell of wintergreen and it has that kind of trigeminal effect, that cooling effect to your nose, imagine removing that trigeminal, which is that nerve in the back of your nose and your brain that kind of like, ooh, that's cool. That's that you feel it kind of like a temperature. Imagine if you smelled wintergreen without that, and that gives you kind of a rough idea as to what some of the other salicylates might smell like. Because it's only the methyl salicylate, methyl, chemistry again, that has that kind of cooling effect. So salicylates are a big part of it. And if you were some major perfume nerds, as in like study perfumery, in those questions that I asked earlier, I would have expected some people to say salicylates. But for those of you who are just perfume enthusiasts, wasn't expecting that. It's a little bit more on the nerdy side for the perfume making side, but they are indispensable for the fougere. Yoshi asks me for my opinion on Beau de Jour. It's well made. I think it's rather reductive. I think that they were heavily inspired by Zino Davidoff. I don't think it's exactly the same as Zino Davidoff. It is a much more of a treble kind of opening to that lavender and patchouli thing that's going on with Zino Davidoff. I think it's fine. I don't think that it didn't knock my socks off because I thought it was a little bit too derivative. It reminded me a little too much of Zino from Davidoff. Envy, hi JJ. I rediscovered Pacha de Cartier. Also a nice fougere with a very classic structure, but with a touch of modern with mint and mandarin orange. Lovely. And Cuddy J77DD, I enjoy Nikolai New York Intense. That's another goodie. You're welcome, Tripler. Be sure to check out the archive. Hello, Kitschy K. Welcome. Are you a Fougere fan? All right, so what else do we have here? So we have that hexyl salicylate. This is another one. I love the salicylates. And like I can immediately identify them from certain things in nature. Here's the bergamot oil. Num num. So a lot of perfumers have to use a bergamot oil that is bergaptine free. Bergaptine is the skin sensitizer. It's actually phototoxic. So if you're under the sun and you have too much bergamot on your skin, it can cause some serious reactions. So we're going to move into spices. Think of one spice that shows up often in fougères, and let's see if we can segue into the next materials that we're going to talk about. Think of a spice, and think of 70s and early 80s fougères, or 70s to mid-80s fougères. And while we wait for some answers, just a reminder, I'm here to remind you that if you buy 6 coffees, you'll get a sample pack, US only please. 12 coffees get you a 4 full bottle grab bag from my collection of doubles and surplus and a sample pack. And that is US only at this time. And don't forget to hit the like. Somebody give me a like tally if you don't mind. Travis says, love wintergreen. I love the flavor of wintergreen. I love wintergreen sweets, Canada mints. What a coincidence. We're talking about Canada. I don't even know if Canada mints are in Canada, but the pink mints with the wintergreen flavor. Felix Weiss. Some fougères I try to love, but they're too dense. Caron's Third Man by Akiko Kamei. Wonderful, but it kicks my nose. It's one of my favorite fragrances of all time. And it's actually not going to be one of the ones that I discuss because I feel like it's a little too unconventional to really be firmly in the fougère category. It sort of treads between fougère, aromatic, and chypre. Kind of like covers a few. It's kind of like covering a lot in the Venn diagram, so it's not really pure fougère as far as I'm concerned, but I love it. Cardamom. Cardamom's a good one. Not the one that I'm thinking of, but cardamom has been known to show up in fougères. And Pat Lester got it. Anise or anise. Anise is the French way. I like to say that more so than anise. Anise. Or anus. Some people have said it that way. You know who you are. So there are a few materials here. Besides, you know, aniseed essential oil or star anise, there are a few others. Like there's an anisyl alcohol. We're going to be talking about a couple of fragrances that do feature, a couple of fougère fragrances that heavily feature anise or anise. Anisal alcohol, powdery sweet, anise-like, sweet lilac, mimosa, sweet pea, heliotrope, hawthorn blossoms. It's a blender. It can blend everything else together. Sweet odor, but it's often used in constructing the accords for anise. We also have the anisegaldehyde, one of my favorite materials, also known as anisaldehyde. Sweet, powdery, floral. This smells very much like the more pleasantly fragranced hawthorn blossoms from hawthorn trees. Heliotrope, hay, anise, mimosa, honeysuckle, a little bit like linden, all these different things. Cassie, acacia. Also used in constructing anise accords. Anethol, which is the main component. In anise, we would be remiss without mentioning anethol, and it smells pretty much exactly like anise because there's so much of it in star anise and aniseed. So congratulations to Pat Lester for getting the correct answer on that. And, you know, there's going to be other spices. You know, you'll have your cinnamon. You'll have your, there's herbs as well. We can talk about herbs. There's some herbal ingredients like plicatone. Plicatone is an interesting base that's produced by Firmenich. It smells like wormwood. It is fantastic. And Urbac, produced by IFF. Leafy, vegetal, herbaceous. It smells like fresh, crushed herbal leaves, like the kind of herbs that are rich in essential oils. Poplar Buds Absolute. I had to share this because there's a fragrance later, which is Fougère Platine, and Fougère Platine has some Poplar Buds Absolute in it. And we're rounding off to some of the last ones. Borneol, which is a wood synthetic, kind of adds that woodiness that you can find in fougères. Herboxane, another highly potent herbal note. But this is the thing about fougères. You know, you have that core, citruses, lavender, geranium, oak moss, and coumarin, but they can go in different directions. You can have amber fougères because the base, in addition to all of those main ingredients, the base can have benzoin and labdanum and maybe even some vanilla. You can have fougères that are spicier with cinnamon and nutmeg, casserelle poiron. You can have very herbaceous ones that have those herbs like tarragon. In fact, this is Tuscanol, made by Givaudan, and in place of using tarragon oil, which is much more expensive, love the smell of it. This has a very high estragol content, and estragol is really what makes up the scent of tarragon, along with some anethol, which is why it's also somewhat anisic. But you got things like that. You got tarragon, rosemary. Maybe you'll have a rosy fougère. Maybe you'll have a fougère that's more floral. You have Fougère Mirage from Les Indémodables. which marries tuberose into a fougere. And here's costasol. This is actually discontinued, but this is a wonderful material. And costasol, things like this, chamberlaud, you have that more animalic element. Kouros is actually technically a fougere. Many people think that it is a chypre or even an amber, but it's a fougere. Its main structure is that of a fougere, and it's a very animalic one at that. So I'm going to be putting away these materials. I hope you enjoyed the first hour where we talk about these materials and how they form the notes, the accords. And in the next hour, I'm going to be going over the fragrances. And for some people, that's the favorite part, because you talk about the final products. 25 people have liked the stream. Let's bring that up to 30 if we can. Cloves was a great answer, Travis. Cloves, of course. Cloves often shows up. We have one fragrance that we're going to be talking about in the next hour, heavily clovey. Cardamom, love cardamom. Yoshi, get along. Abbey Rouge, use the spice notes. Abbey Rouge is more of an amber. It is actually more of an amber than really a fougere. But we're not going to split hairs here. Cloves, nutmeg. Thank you so much, Yoshi. We can duke it out on what Abbey Rouge really is. It could be everything and nothing all at once. We can get philosophical about it. I love Abbey Rouge, though. Am I going to talk about amber fougères versus aromatic fougères? I hear those labels around a lot. So a little bit earlier, aromatic fougères would be the ones that are heavy in the herbs with maybe some spices. So much more herbaceous ones would be aromatics. So when you hear things that are just aromatics, that would be like the herbaceous and citrusy fragrances without that core of lavender, oak moss, and coumarin necessarily, with one of those missing. And there's a lot of debate, like what makes something not a fougere versus a fougere. It's an endless, people will bicker and quibble with each other over these descriptions. But generally speaking, I would say like an aromatic is one where you just don't really have those three that are kind of the linchpins for the fragrance. But aromatic fougères, that's where you have a lot of those aromatics, the herbs, some of the spices, in a fougere. And then you have a spicy fougere where it isn't so much herbal or green or leafy, it's much more spicy. That Tuscanel is delicious. Installment Rive Gauche, Intense Porom is one of the best anises, I think. And confirming release in 2006. Sorry if I'm about 5 minutes behind in the chat. Azaro Porom, yep, that's one of them. We're going to talk about that one soon. Rive Gauche, Intense Anise is so bright. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to start off the next hour. I want to make sure this Tuscanol is tightly closed. I'll probably do that during the intermission. And in the next hour, at the top of the hour, we're going to be talking about the 20 or so fragrances that I have at my side that fall into the fougères category. So back in a moment. And we're back, and we're going to get started in talking about the actual fragrances, the Fougères. So, what do you think would be the first one we talk about, huh? Let's take a look at the chat. I can't go poop that fast. Maybe a number one break, maybe a pee break, but no. I need more time than that. Open a coconut. No, don't apologize for that. No judgment at all. Don't worry. No, you're good. 18 people tuned in at the moment. 27 people who are liking the stream. Let's try to get at least 3 more. Let's try to do 30. Come on now. I'm going to take a look and see how we are for coffees. And thank you for purchasing a coffee for the anonymous individual. I promise not to mention your name. You said so in the chat. All right. So, what would be the first Fougère that we can talk about? We're not going to argue as to whether or not it was the first ever Fougère, but what would be the first one of note that really put Fougères on the map? 19 people. Come on, I should see. You're all are experts. You should know this if you love your Fougères. Boom, 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 boom. I got the answer. Come on. Let's hear it. You know what it is. Or maybe they're not coming through. Maybe you're answering and I'm just not seeing it. The Fougère that put Fougères on the map. Easy. Come on. Do I have to give clues? Somebody's got to know. I mean, I know some. I feel like a number of you do know, but you're just too shy to comment. And that's okay, but the people who have been commenting for the first hour, I know a few of you must know the answer. The Fougère, the premier Fougère, the Fougère that put Fougère on the map. Hey, thank you. Awesome. Cuddy J77DD Fougère Royale. Was it the first one? We're not going to debate that. There's a lot of speculation as to what the first one was, but that was the one that put Fougères on the map. Now, I have not found a Fougère Royale vintage that wouldn't set me back $2,000 to $3,000. It's very uncommon to find it, and then actually, rumor has it that even if you find it, a lot of them have been spoiled for whatever reason. A lot of people who do get it, a vintage version of it, they've been a little bit disappointed. Not all the time, it's just really risky. And bear in mind, Fougère Royale was in production only until I think the early 70s. And even some people argue that it just was diminished by that point anyhow, because I think Houbigant started getting produced by Coty. Coty was cutting costs. But I have the Rodrigo Flores Roux version of Fougère Royale, which is, I think, spectacular. And it was just a wee bit modernized, but I wouldn't say modernized to the point where I never got an actual bottle, but I did get a very small vial of a vintage Fougère Royale from a very good friend. And I would say that Rodrigo got it pretty good. The only thing is there's a bit less salicylates in this, which is the only thing that I wish he could have pushed the salicylates more. But I think in modern times, the salicylates at the level as they would be in Fougères in the late 19th, early 20th century wouldn't be as commercially viable. But they're there. And this is really enjoyable. I really do like this version of Fougère Royale from Houbigant. Good guess. That actually has a little factoid to it as a citrus aromatic. That was the first fragrance, or at least rumored to be the first fragrance to use hedione, which is now commonly used in perfume. Hedione. If you don't know what hedione is, it is used It's like bottled sunshine. It's like it really smells like jasmine and like just the flowers on a warm sunny day. And it is used in so many fragrances and has been in the years since the 60s when it was first used in Eau Sauvage. And then Edmund Rudnitska started using it in his other fragrances like Diorella and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's what put it on the map. Please repeat a question. If you could just clarify that, UK. H something. Oh, you were trying there, Tom. You had it on the tip of your tongue. Rubicon Fougère Royale. I'm glad that you mentioned this one, because now GOF Trumper, I don't know if they advertise it as having been released earlier, but I've seen different dates for it. I've seen, a date in the late 19th century. I've seen 1977. I don't know for sure. But GOF Trumper Wild Fern is pretty close to the way Fougère Royale was in its time. I love it. Love it. This is, you detect the salicylates in this, amyl salicylate, the mossiness. It's just like walking through like a meadow with clovers, and it's, the perimeter of the woods are ahead of you, and those woods just are filled with like ferns and mushrooms and all kinds of good stuff. But GOF Trumper Wild Fern, still in production, not expensive. Another lovely one is Penhaligon's English Fern, which unfortunately is getting expensive because it's been discontinued. Which is another classic style of Fougère. A little bit more on the anisic side, but still very much the amyl salicylate, the hexanyl salicylate, the clovery kind of smell of the ferns. Beautiful stuff. Penhaligon's English Fern. Cuddy J77, what year is which one? Are you referring to the Wild Fern? I might have already answered your question. Some places claim that it was like in the late 1800s. Other places say it was released in 1977. I don't know for sure. It definitely doesn't smell like it was released in 1977 because it does smell like a very old world type of Fougère. Yoshi mentions Eau de Quinine. That's an oldie but goodie too. And says, I'm going to say that Lilique Equus is an underrated Fougère. A very woody one at that. Yeah, right. You're right. Yeah, limey, or at least like the illusion of it, for sure. Yeah. Atkinson's Royal English Lavender, a nice geranium and a touch of oak moss. Royal English Lavender, that's hard to get here. I really do want a bottle. And I hear even the most recent bottles are pretty good quality. Luca Turin got a new bottle, and on his Substack, he does mention that it's quite enjoyable. Another Fougère in the style of the classic Fougères of the late 19th and early 20th century is a newer release from our friend Darren Allen of Darren Allen Perfumes, Dorian's Fougère. This was one of my favorite releases of last year in my top 10. I discussed it in my top 10 video for 2023. Dorian's Fougère. What a talent. Wow. So good. Wonderful stuff. I might wear some of this tonight, actually. Jean-Claude Saint, Michi, good to see you. Scent of the day is the spectacular Ennui from Shiseido. Gucci Nobile, yeah, I would say it could fall into the Fougère category. Yeah. I mean, some people could debate it's more of like an aromatic, but great to have you back, Fernando. Not in order of favorites. No particular order. I'm not ranking. No ranks. Very nice. And let's talk about some Guerlain Fougères. And this is where we start to see that vanilla coming in. and the idea of like an amber fougere, kind of like the precursor to that. And who can guess what I'm talking about before I show it? What fougere from Guerlain? See if somebody can get the answer. Cuddy J77DD. Dorian's is very powdery on me. I do like it, but I have other favorites. Crete Green Irish Tweed. Go for it. You can mention it. One of the first dihydromercenol fougères, for which I don't have too many because, truth be told, it's not a favorite of mine. I do have some fragrances that do have, a fair amount of dihydromercenol, but I like it when it's more judiciously used, when it's not like cool water level. I wore the dickens out of cool water in high school, though. I'll give you that. Is anyone paying you for this list? Somebody paying me to promote all these fragrances, including the discontinued ones? No, nobody's paying me. I can assure you, 100% authentic here. I am not a grifter. I am not sponsoring brands. I am not here to make money. I haven't even made $60 on my YouTube channel so far this year, so this is as real as it gets. I am here just to inform, educate, enlighten, share, learn from you, just enjoy and nerd out and have fun and talk about the magnificence of perfumery. But yeah, I'm not going to be sponsoring any brands. I always have a critical eye. I am a reviewer and writer of fragrance, more journalistic in my approach. It would be a conflict of interest if I were to ever do that. And once you start seeing somebody do that, even people who you think are your friends, just be careful, because they're going to be blowing smoke up the asses of those brands, and they're not going to be 100% honest with you because they know that they have to be honest. I mean, they're being dishonest. They have to pretend to like it. They have to pretend to really be into it, and they have to convince you that it's great and convince you to buy it. And when they start doing that, they become an infomercial. They're no longer becoming just a reviewer. They're part of that racket. And I will never become part of that racket, and I will always be critical of that racket. And I get it. People want to pay, they want to make money. They want to make a living. There are many different ways of making a living. And I'm not sure if I'm thrilled with that choice, but to each their own. I don't like it. I don't like when people are grifters who put a bottle next to them and say that this is going to get you laid and this is going to get you compliments and this is the best thing they ever smelled. I don't advocate for it. I frown upon it. I don't like it, and that's not what I do. So that's enough off of my chest about it. So Derby is wonderful. Vetiver of Guerlain Vetiver. We're not going to be talking about Guerlain Vetiver. I feel like that would be like a whole Vetiver stream we could do maybe next autumn when we start up the Notes and Accords stream. Carnation's one of my favorite notes, actually. Yes, Yoshi, you got it right. Jicky, this is the Eau de Parfum. This is an example of Thierry Wasser doing a stupendous job at recapturing the essence of Jicky. This is the Eau de Parfum, and I recently acquired the Parfum Estrée, which is snuggled in this box. There's my Estrée of Jicky. Thank you, Thierry Wasser, for saving it. It wasn't smelling so good for a number of years, but it's back in shape. I don't know if they're actually making the Estrée anymore. I don't know. I can't keep it. I don't always have my finger on the pulse of what the business side of things are doing. But, I mean, there's still a few bottles of this kicking around if you want to spend about 200 something bucks. Or 300, I don't know. I didn't spend that much on it. But Jicky is another one. And that is Jicky is where you have that vanilla. And that would be the precursor to the Amber Fougère. And it would also be the precursor to Shalimar, and it would be the precursor to Abbey Rouge, a precursor to so many different things. It really was a benchmark in perfumery. And then there's also the variant on the theme, which, don't listen to people who say that this is too similar to Jiki, because I feel like this is the more herbaceous and lilting version of Jiki, and more animalic, more civety, actually. And it's called Mouchoir de Monsieur, the gentleman's handkerchief. Unfortunately, this has been discontinued. Okay, Darren, I promise I will wear Dorian's Fougère soon, but I gotta put this on. Oh my god. Oh, the bergamot, it's so sparkling. And the lavender, and that civet tone, that civet lurking underneath. It's really salacious. Oof, love it. Mouchoir de Monsieur. Okay, I didn't even. You mentioned that too. Good on you. No, not piss. No. I wouldn't say piss. The slightest bit of like, oh, you're a little dirty. I mean, like maybe a little bit of secretion. Maybe I wouldn't say it's like pissy, but in my own review that I did for Mouchoir de Monsieur, I talked about a little bit of leakage. All right. Oh, the jerks, have at it if you want. Here's my moment for you to lampoon me, but a little bit of, your drawers don't stay clean the entire time you wear them till the time that you put on another pair. That kind of thing. And that sort of in between. A little bit of that, but not exceedingly urinous. But it is civety. Love a good piss vibe. Fernando Soto, I heard someone declassifying. Where's my head? I heard someone classifying Invasion Barbare by MDCI as a neo-Fougère. What do you think about that kind of classification, JJ? Yeah, I would say so. In fact, I have something else I'm going to be talking about a little bit, which I think I prefer personally to Invasion Barbare. I do not have Invasion Barbare. I don't think it's bad, but I think that the fragrance that I have is a little bit better when we're talking about that specific approach to a Fougère. We'll talk about a little bit. Neo-Fougère, postmodern, deconstructed, into the wild. That is a great one from Darren. I heard that the eau de parfum in the inverted heart bottles that are current for Jiki are still great. Still the same formula. Oh, yes, I have. As a matter of fact, a number of times. Not lately. I feel like they've moved on to other areas of concentration, but I've been a subject on there a few times. Which is kind of funny because I really don't know why people would be obsessed with whatever I'm doing. That's the internet for you. So we talked about the Guerlains. We talked about the early Fougères. We talked about Darren's excellent early approach to classical approach to a Fougère. I think this is the time that we're going to fast forward because we're going to talk about Guerlain because this is the first example of a deconstructed Fougère. Guerlain pour un homme, which is really minimal in structure. It's all about the lavender. So this is an example of where if you really want to pare it down to the barest elements, lavender, oak moss, maybe some coumarin, a lot of vanilla, a lot of musk. Pour un homme de Cologne. And moving forward, Brut from Fabergé, a vintage version. Immediately think of my dad when I smell this. because this was his go-to. This was his daily driver, as the kids say. This is the one where if he couldn't decide on anything else, he just splashed on some Brut for Men. And we're inching towards the 70s, but we have examples of where florals come in, like Monsieur de Givenchy. We have the carnation that comes in. We have verbena in place of bergamot and Monsieur de Givenchy. So this is sort of bridging fougere with citrus aromatic. Lovely stuff. And we're inching closer to the 70s, which was a big year, a really big year for fougères. It is an amazing lavender. I love it. I love wearing it at night. It's really like a nice comfort fragrance. Oh yeah, total 80s vibe. That was, I was a kid in the 80s, and that's what my dad would wear when he had some nice stuff. He had Equipage by Hermes, which is surprising. It was practically unheard of in the States, but he was given that as a gift from a family member. So I have a really strong association with Equipage. It's one of my favorite fragrances because it just takes me back to childhood. Oh, well, there's Clubman. I had to make sure to pull out the Clubman, and my Clubman still says it has the Avernia furfuracea and the Avernia prunastri in it. But let's talk about the 70s. So, pardon me. What was one of the first successful fougères of the 70s? Sure does. One of the first successful fougères of the 70s. So close, and we're going to get to that one in just a bit. This predated it by about 5 years. "24 people tuned in. Let's take a look at the coffee count. We only have one coffee for this street. Come on, guys. Help me out. I don't make much money off of YouTube. They take all of the money, all that advertising revenue. Six cups gets you a sample pack. 12 cups gets you 4-bottle grab bag plus a sample pack. US only, please. Check the pinned comment for the link. Good guess. Polo's a little bit more of a Chypre, actually. Paco Rabanne, Porom. Here is my bottle from the 70s. So this would become the reference fougère that would lead to the fougère craze that would extend into the 80s and then into the 90s. This is what really started the renaissance of fougères. Paco Rabanne Porom. And then we have the anisic fougères that started popping up, like Azzaro Porom in the year of my birth, 1978. Azzaro Porom. Another classic, another one that I remember smelling a lot in the ether when I was a child. Great one. We have a lesser known one, which actually leans a little bit more into tarragon, along with the anise, and really beautifully mossy. This is one that was discontinued years ago. This is from Chardonnay Porom, or Unum, rather. Unum, eau de toilette. And then moving forward into the 80s, and some have argued that this is too similar to Azzaro, and I don't agree. I think that this is a lot more, way more aromatic, a lot more citrus aromatic stuff going on into it. But the real, the spine of it is a Fougère for sure. This is a Tuscany Peromo from Aramis. Discontinued. Sadly, like everything from the Aramis Gentleman's Collection, which was in itself a relaunch of all these classic fragrances like this, JHL, Aramis 900, New West. What am I forgetting? Am I getting all of them? No, I don't know. Let me know what I'm forgetting. Oh, one of my favorites, Devon. Is it a gas spray? Yeah, it is actually a pressurized atomizer. Dior Joule, another great one. That's another good mention. That's a more nebulous area, but great fragrances nonetheless, kind of treading a little bit more into the green or spicy Chypre territory. A lot of labdanum and Halston Z14 and gray flannel, a little bit more of like a green floral Chypre with maybe a little bit of Fougère-esque elements. Enjoy your supper, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you want, you can check out the remaining half hour on the archive. Have a great evening. 26 people tuned in. Have we reached 30? I'm looking at 28. We gotta get more likes. Come on. It helps with the algorithm. I'm not doing this for my health. I got a full-time job already. I'm not getting paid well for this. Come on, give me the likes. Help that algorithm. I am not going to put my mug on the thumbnails of all my videos just to get more attention. I'm not doing it. I'm resisting. I've resisted it for the 2 years that I've had this channel. I'm not going to do it. I rely on the likes. So give me a few likes. Smash that like button if you please. We can talk about it. I don't have it by my side. I did mention Kouros earlier as actually having a Fougère structure. But it can be mentioned for sure. Jazz, sort of that aromatic / Fougère gray area. Thanks, Fernando, for the tally. Let's bring that up. Let's try to bring it up to, I don't know, is it too ambitious to try 35 likes? Let's try for that. We're moving forward. We've gotten well into the 80s. I mean, of course, we could talk about Cool Water and Rocker Noir. Don't have bottles of them because I lived through those. I lived through them. I bathed in them for years. I don't need to have a bottle sitting around. It is locked in my brain. I had so much experience with them. I don't need to have them anymore. That doesn't say I don't have a place in my heart for them, but I don't have bottles here. But there's some others, like there's some obscurities. You always got to throw in an obscurity now and then, right? Like this one for Vermeil Cassac. Very smoky one. Kind of in a similar vein to like Van Cleef and Arpels Tsar. Oh, I have to rewind a little bit because cloves. Somebody mentioned cloves earlier. Cloves and Fougère. The dark and gothic clovey Fougères. You can't forget like Giacomo de Giacomo. A leathery, spicy Fougère. And Fougères have been marketed to the ladies as well, like Jean Patou's Moment Suprême, and then in the 80s, Malibate from Jean Patou. But this is just totally unisex. You wouldn't be able to tell this was marketed to the ladies. They have some unisex florals, heliotrope, lots of lavender, mossy, geranium. This is the eau de parfum version of Ma Liberté. And we're inching closer and closer to the present time. So I think it's around time that we're into the 90s now. I just want to coexist in this ecosystem. I have nothing against him. I wish him the best. But I mean, if you want to talk amongst yourselves about him having a tendency to be a gatekeeper and having a tendency to suffer from Dunning-Kruger, be my guest. Talk amongst yourselves. Lauder for men. Lauder for men is, to me, I mean, no answer is really a wrong answer, but to me, that's much more of a men's Chypre. Very Chypre because of that jasmine and the juniper and the biting kind of feel of it. But such an excellent fragrance. I will make sure to include that in Chypres, which will be the next Notes and Accords, because we're going to do a hiatus until September. And come in September, I'm going to start these again, and that one will be for Chypres. Beautifully elegant. I agree. Rocha Makassar. Yeah, that's a great one. I would say that's a little bit more Chypre-ish too, or spicy aromatic. But, like I said, I'm not going to debate it. It's like, if you pick up the Fougère energy, then there's a little bit of Fougère in it. Into the 90s, another discontinued fragrance is Insensé from Givenchy Insensé. This is where we have like a Fougère with floral elements. So this would be the floral Fougère to Lauder for Men's floral Chypre, with a lily of the valley and a jasmine and some lovely stuff in it. And this has been long discontinued and had some hype for some time there. And it's kind of leveled off a little bit. Some people are like, it's overrated, which I love hearing that stuff because that means it gives people an opportunity to buy it at a lower price. So maybe I should be like, it's not that great. It's overrated, but it's really good. 22 people tuned in. $33 likes. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. We're getting into the 2000s here. We're at the home stretch on the fragrances that I wanted to chat about. So we're getting into the late 90s, early 2000s now. And I think that now is a good time to mention that more postmodern Fougère that I actually prefer to Invasion Barbare. And this is 1725 from Histoire de Perfume. And this is, you do have the licorice and the lavender and the anise in this, and a very vanillic, almost almondy as well. Some aspects of it kind of remind me of heliotrope. 1725, I prefer it to Invasion Barbare, and it's more affordable. I think MDCI, the brand is just so overpriced for what it is, honestly. Fragrances are decent. Some of them are really good, but... And who, for fuck's sake, gets the bottles with the busts on top? Like how fucking pretentious is that? I always thought that was a trip. That you could get like a bottle with this bust, like a bust that like Don Music on Sesame Street would have on his piano for like an extra $200 or some shit. All right, I'm getting carried away. All right, we're getting down to the niche Fougères and the more recent ones. We could talk about another postmodern Fougère, deconstructed, a minimal Fougère, if you will, from Jean-Claude Ellena. This is a Blinde Réglisse, which is this is a lavender Fougère via licorice root. Very minimalist. This is one of those where it's like bare minimum. Lavender, coumarin, and then you have the licorice. Beautiful stuff, though. I think this is one of the Hermescence that has been discontinued, though. But I checked today to see if bottles were still coming up for sale, and this one usually it comes up for sale on eBay for kind of cheap for what the retail price was going for the Hermescence, like under $200 for a large bottle like this. And then you can get one of those little 15 mils for under $70. You can decide whether it's worth it. Always try to get a sample first, but one of my favorites from Hermescence, it was always sort of like the under the radar one. And we talked about Brut earlier, but this is sort of like Bertrand Ducheffort's ode to the spirit of Brut, but fleshing it out and making it more nuanced and classy. And that is Sartorial from Penhaligon's. I'm so glad somebody picked up the Dawn music reference. Thank you. Good to see you here, Absurd Nose. It doubles the price, yeah. Oh, you did? I'm so sorry. I'm totally like, you can cancel me. You can you can unsubscribe. You can hate me. I'm sorry. I just find them goofy. It's just my opinion. I hope you're not too offended. I have a little bit of a comedian side. It's just not meaning to offend anyone's sensibilities. But did you get the Invasion Babar in the bust version? I mean, how does the bust look in person? I mean, I've actually never seen those versions of the bottles. I'm assuming it's like really good quality, like it's actually made from like marble. I don't know. You gotta tell us what it's like. Do you think the bust looks cheap? Did you see that in person? Opium Porom, more like a spicy. That would be like a Fougères, I think. Ah, thank you, Bilbo. Thank you, Yoshi. I'm glad that you have a place to hang out this evening and have fun. Sartorial is wonderful. And thanks to the 26 people who are tuned in, we have 35 likes. That's awesome. Let's check the Buy Me a Coffee tally here. Thank you so much for, we have another coffee here. 6 cups of coffee will get you a sample pack. Yoshi, you're going to be getting a free sample pack. Just get in touch with me to make sure that I have your information so we get that sent out to you because you won the award for answering Fougère Royale and Coumarin. So it does look nice in person. Okay, cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to be a jerk. I was just trying to be funny. I don't know. It's just not really my aesthetic, but I'm glad that it looks good. Really? Hand paints them? See, that's kind of impressive. Like I'll hand it to him if he really is putting that care and dedication into them. So he claims. All right, we have another discontinued one because you know me. I always have all these discontinued fragrances. FOMO, hyping up things, comes with the territory, I guess. Me with my cohort. Fougère Platine from Tom Ford. Another excellent modern Fougère. Bottles like this, even after its discontinuation. Oh, I love this. And it has like mastic in it. And I love mastic resin. Excellent stuff. Fougère Platine. And you know what it looks like? It looks like I went through all of them. Those are the ones that I wanted to share for the stream. We're at 8:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time where I am. We're going to stay on for about 20 more minutes, and maybe this would be a good opportunity to have a discussion and get your thoughts from the viewers on your ideas of Fougères, what you like about them, what you dislike about them, which ones you think are underrated, which ones you think are overrated. You can talk a little smack about some things. This is a safe space for that stuff. Yeah, the Fougère Platine, all the Fougères and the Vere series were discontinued. And honestly, there are not too many Tom Fords that I've been impressed with throughout my time. I used to love Noir de Noir. I wore that 13, 14 years ago. I really liked a couple of the others. The Champaka Absolute I thought was really great. But for the most part, I've been less than impressed But those two lines, the two Fougères, Fougère d'Argent, Fougère Platine, and the Vert de Bois, Vert Bohème, Vert de Fleur, I think was the third one. I can't recall. Excellent, excellent creations. Really, they were too good for Tom Ford's private collection. And they were all discontinued. Go figure, you know? They weren't commercially successful because they weren't as gimmicky and they weren't as, you know, they wouldn't make you smell like a snack, I guess. The note at the top still mentions the 4-bottle grab bag. Ooh, any look for Brackenman. The note at the top. Ooh, wait. Top. Yeah, if you could clarify, I don't want something sticking around there that really... Oh, yeah. It still mentions it. It's still available. Yeah. Yeah, I do appreciate Brackenman. Sorry, I'm like thrown off. I was trying to figure out what you were saying. Yeah, I do appreciate Brackenman. I have a sample of it. I didn't go full bottle, but I think that's a nice one too. I think that's very well done. Fougère d'Argent. My favorite cardamom scent. Good one. God, you have me on the spot with cardamom. I feel like there was like a recent fragrance that contained cardamom that was... I know what it is. Miskio Parfums. Miskio Parfums Épice. Excellent cardamom scent. Miskio. Marie Blanchette. Indie House. The fragrances are just phenomenal. She is like the one to watch, the one to smell. Her fragrances, that is. Miskio Parfums. Miskeo. Check out Épice. Excellent cardamom accord in that. Yeah, you were the first one to mention it. I think it is definitely worthy of mention, Bracken Man. Fleur Solis, yeah, I agree. I have it over there. I just didn't pull it out. If I knew that I'd have an extra 20 minutes, I would have pulled out, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 more. Yeah, so for the pin message, it's still up there. It's still available. I have 2 4-bottle grab bags left. I put aside more, and the sample packs. That can keep on going. I have plenty of samples to let go of here. Yeah, the prices are what really turn me off the most, Pat, about the house. Why don't we try some different music here? That one has been in loop for a while. We'll do a different tune to round off the next 15, 20 minutes here. And Cuddy J77DD, I like Bracken Man, but it turns a little cat pissy on me in the later dry down. And I think maybe it does have a blackcurrant accord in it. It's been a while since I smelled it. Yeah, it's come back actually, Noah. Yeah, I did. I wasn't doing it for a while, but then I did some further inventory. So that's what you mean. Okay, I know what you're talking about. You thought that I was still advertising it because I wasn't for a while, but I did bring it back. There's 8 total that can be used towards it, so I could have 2 people do the 4 full bottle grab bag and sample pack. Blenheim Bouquet, Bergamot, Lavender, and Oak Moss. Yeah, that counts too. Yeah. A very piney one, though. Love the pine in that. The pine really is forward in Blenheim Bouquet. Maybe we can get to 40 likes at the end of the stream. We got 35 right now. Let's try to get 5 more. That would make me happy to have 40 within the 2-hour live stream. That would really kick ass. It went down to 34. Somebody changed their mind, apparently. They're like, that son of a bitch. Talking smack. I'm going to take my like away. Oh, no, it went back to 35. Well, I guess somebody just liked it right now. Well, let's try to get to 40. We get 5 more that we can get, and we'll have 40 by the end of the stream. So I want to give some updates on what's coming up. So when the summer comes, I slow down on my YouTube channel. So next week, there's going to be a special edition, a very special episode of Different Strokes. But my guess is not going to be Gordon Jump. It is going to be, I hope somebody gets that reference. My guest is going to be Alex the Perfume Temple. He's going to be joining me next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is a very green episode. We're going to be talking all about green fragrances. This was his choice of discussion. He's going to be joining me, and Rachel's going to be coming back, our lovely Rachel. She's going to be with us. The week following that, I'm going to be releasing a video on heliotrope in fragrance. I mentioned heliotrope a few times during this stream. So that week, I'll launch the heliotrope in fragrance video. And then the week following that, Scout Dixon West is going to be our guest. She's going to be joining Rachel and myself for the last effluvium of the season. And then for the summer, we're going to do 2 summer sessions, mid-July, mid-August. I'm going to come back in September, start effluvium again. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it even every other week. Truth be told, the viewership hasn't been that great. Maybe I'm partly responsible for it. I don't know. Used to have a lot of viewers. We don't get as many viewers. Maybe it's just the time of year. Viewership has gone down. I'm thinking what I might do is do effluvium once a month. So do effluvium once a month, do the notes and accords once a month. The first one for the next season for notes and accords is going to be chypras. And then the month after that is going to be florals. So I'm going to be going over all the different flowers that are in the fragrance. I'm going to talk about all the naturals that I have and some of the synthetics that are used in putting together various floral accords. And I'll be doing that all the way ahead in October. Rogue Perfumery was not mentioned. They have 2 great fougères. Honorable mentions. I think that they're deserving of a mention. So, yeah, I don't have them. I have samples. Can't have it all. Can't have everything in my collection. Some stuff I just have in decants or, samples or, yeah. But, yeah, no, they're definitely deserving of mention. So I haven't decided yet who is going to be on the summer sessions for effluvium. So who would you like to see? What returning guests? I think what we're going to do is we're going to have some guests return for the summer sessions. What guests would you like to see return from the past 2 seasons of effluvium for the summer session? Let me know in the comments or in the chat. Chat, you can might as well, since we're live. Mark Sage, we can do Mark Sage. That's actually a good suggestion, though, because I was thinking I could do like a larger panel of independent perfumers, and I could have Mark Sage, I could have Diane St. Clair, I could bring some other folks back and do like an independent perfumer panel and just have a discussion on the state of independent perfumery or whatever topics are decided upon. I think someone mentioned those from Rogue in the chat, but I do agree those are great. $37. We have 3 more to go to 40 likes. 3 more to go. Let's try to get 3 more by 8:55 p.m. 5 minutes from now. And we have 23 people tuned in. Yeah, I'm going to ask Mark. I'm going to ask Diane. Let me see who else. The name escapes me. That's awful. She was one of my guests, and she's fabulous. I love her. This is me after a long day of work. See, I don't know how some of these YouTubers can do this and put out a video like every fucking day. Like, I work full time, and like I can barely remember my own name, let alone other people's names. But we're going to get some independent perfumers on a panel. Oh, Darren, of course. Yeah, that goes without saying. Love Darren. I wish he was around tonight. Oh, thank you, my friend. Yeah, nobody, there was nothing about Lancetti on YouTube, and I had to put something about the Lancetti house. Nobody talked about any of its fragrances. It's one of those houses that just doesn't get any love. I really appreciate that. I know I was really ambitious with those earlier videos. That was fun. Now, wasn't that the video where I did a little bit of trickery and I was like looking through the bottles and I was doing kind of like this kind of like fancy kind of stuff, just using mostly just like I think it was just mostly my iPhone and my laptop. But that was a fun video. Yeah, it's just going to be 2 this year because I pushed the season into June a little bit, and the last effluvium is going to be June 13th. So I'm just going to do 2. Persolase's stream was great. It's one of my most watched streams. I don't think I'm going to have him back again for the summertime, and I'm considering having him back, maybe sometime next year. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love curating the music. One of my favorite, this is the thing, like so many YouTubers, they choose the shittiest music. Like, I don't know, or maybe, maybe I don't want to insult their music taste, but they use like a lot of like, what do you call it? Copyright, no issues with copyright. What is the term that's used? I always forget. They use that free something or other crappy, music kind of music. And I just take the risk and I just use music and hopefully I won't get demonetized. I take the risk. I mean, because also like I'm not relying on this as my income. So if like a video happens to be demonetized because I use something and it's copyrighted, then oh well. I'm just not going to get, the paltry spare change off of the views on that video. Effluvium's actually on this channel. So if you go to the channel, you can see all the archives. I've had a lot of great guests. You go to the tab for lives, and you'll see you'll see these lives and the Effluvium lives, all the live streams that I've done since the channel started. I've had a lot of guests, a lot of perfumers, a lot of content creators, a lot of great people. You should check it out. Just so many incredible guests over the past nearly 2 years. John Beeble, that's another one I'd like to have as part of the panel. Your stuff might not be your style, but the indie perfumer behind Sorcellerie Apothecary makes some really interesting and quality stuff. Keep that in mind. Sorcellerie. Actually, I'll write it down because I won't remember it because my brain is fried. Apothecary. Got it. And then the sheet of paper that I wrote on just flew away. All right. I'll have to look for that later because I don't want to leave my desk here. Insulted their music taste. Thank you. You know what? If nothing else, I've been known as a provocateur. And it's gotten me in some trouble. I think some people have a sense of humor. Some people lack a sense of humor. I think sometimes I've pushed it too far, but nobody can say that I was not a provocateur. I try to be a little bit of an iconoclast compared to what other people do on YouTube. I meant for this YouTube channel to be everything that goes against the grain of what a YouTube channel should be. So, yeah, I mean, some people just play shitty music on their channel. It's like, what's the point? Just don't play music if you're so worried about being demonetized. And if you're so worried about being demonetized, God, I'll bite my lip. It's all fairly feminine leaning, but my wife owns at least a dozen of her scents, and I really enjoy them on her. Yeah, it depends on how feminine leaning it is. I mean, I have Cacharel Lulu. I have really fragrances that are considered more on the feminine side. But yeah, I would definitely check it out. Maybe get some samples and review them. Saskia was a great conversation too, right? She's a pleasure to talk to. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. It's humbling. The most important way to approach all of this is not to take oneself seriously. You know, I don't claim to be an expert in this. I'm a student like everyone else. We're all scholars. And some of us, we want to just enjoy the perfume and not think too much about it. Others, some of us want to learn about, you know, the notes breakdowns and we want to really delve deeper. And then still others, we really want to know how they're made. We want to know the whole history. We have a voracious appetite for everything that's under the umbrella of perfume. And this is the channel that is a welcoming place for those people, but anyone is welcome. No matter what stage in your hobby you're in, or if you just, you know, you just like to hear somebody shoot the breeze about perfume. Barbara Herman, yeah, we could get Barbara Herman back. She's great. I'm grateful to have gotten to know her over the past couple of years. Have we got to 40? We got to 40. Right on. All right. I'll stay on for a few more minutes if we can get to 45 by 9:05. 45 by 9:05. We'll do a check on the buy me a coffees. Only 2 coffees so far on the stream. I was hoping to get 10 coffees. That would really make my night. 10 coffees. So 8 total. So if one person wants to buy a sample pack and you have a couple other people who just want to buy 1 coffee, that would make me happy enough. I'm not asking for too much. Let's try for 10 coffees by the end of the stream. I think we're going to try to have Super Deka back. I think he's exceptional. He has such an incredible mind. Just so talented in the way that he describes and articulates his experience with fragrance, and has an excellent sense of humor too. He is a hoot. Cracks me up. I think he's just the bee's knees. So we'll try to have Super Deka back as well. Is there anybody that you don't want to be here? Is there anybody that you don't ever want me to invite? If you're too afraid, you could always just send me a message on Instagram. We'll keep it between each other. Any frag catch my attention lately? I've been trying to really slow down, my friend, but I do have something coming in the mail, and I will be giddy once I have it. It is from Bruno Acampora. It's called Spallo, and it's the X-ray version. And that's all I'm going to say. Spallo, S-B-A-L-L-O. Read up on it, and you'll see why. It is definitely like a Joseph J.J. Colborn kind of scent. So that's coming in the mail. Another obscurity that was produced by Charles of the Ritz called Charivari. I don't know if anybody knows the early Detroit dance track, like proto-techno track called Charivari, a number of names. Charivari. You have to be a music nerd. But whenever I think of the name, that starts playing in my head. But that's coming in the mail in like this metal bottle a la Rive Gauche. Pretty cool. But that's from Charles of the Ritz. Charles of the Ritz had some kind of like these under the radar gems. The original Charles of the Ritz original one goes for an arm and a leg, but I've smelled a sample of it, and that's pretty spectacular. 70 Chypre. Christophe Ladamiel. Yeah, we'll see if we can get him back, in the fall. Well, this must have been a great stream for you, AM. I love my Fougères as well, dude. I think that was my first loves were the Fougères because they were the earliest fragrances that I wore. Time is now 9 o'clock. We have a coffee that came in. Thank you very much to Noah for buying a coffee. That leaves us with 7 more. 7 more. Let's see if we can get 7 more coffees and 45 likes on the stream by 9:05. Somebody can do a sample pack. You buy 6 coffees, get a sample pack, US only at this time, and then one other person can buy a coffee and it'll be good for the night. Yoon McCall, Jorm Studio. I have a couple of his. I love Carduce and this is so bad. I have to look. Arborist. Those two I really like. I like a lot of his stuff. Yeah, he's from Scotland, Scottish man. The Jaja Hashish. Yeah. Yep. It's good. It's good. I wouldn't say that it's a must-have. I never say anything's a must-have because I think that's bullshit when people say that. Nothing's a must-have. They're all wants. We're not talking about like, bare necessities here. They're not, none of these are must-haves. But I would say that it's great, but it's not something that it didn't. It was really like an also-ran. It was that particular house's version of Yatagan. The only other also-ran of Yatagan, which I think is worth it, really worth it, because it has its own spin on it. It has its own facets, its own character, is Nina Ricci of Phileas. That's the one that I would say, if you can find a bottle of it, even if it's like a mini bottle of it, give it a shot. But that one's good too. But I think it was a little too overhyped for what it is and how scarce it is. I think people were mostly salivating over it because it's kind of hard to find, and I think some of these are like that, where it's like, it's so obscure, it's so hard to find, it never comes up, and when it does, it's like $300, and I'm going to drop my load on it, and I'm going to, hype it up and show the bottle and show everybody how cool I am and make everybody else feel jealous and feel FOMO. And that sometimes happens, and I don't know. I used to be part of that whole tip, and then I just wanted to kind of like not do it as much because I didn't want to like contribute to it. Because I ended up spending way too much money because I was gullible enough to listen to other people too. That's the thing about discontinued and vintage. Like, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Even with the ones that I shared, like I say, unfortunately, it's discontinued. Remember, I'm not saying, but you must have it. And then it's like, you have to have it in your collection. I don't use that kind of language. I don't use that kind of like pressure for that. It's just, it's discontinued. Like if it sounds like it's like definitely up your alley, look for it at a reasonable price. I'm not going to, I don't recommend that people spend the kind of money a lot of these discontinued vintages go for. And if you ever have any advice, if you ever want to ask me, like, is this worth it? Is it worth X amount of money? I'll be honest with you. I'll be straight up. And a lot of the time I'll be like, no, don't spend that much money on it. If you really want it, just wait. Wait for as long as you can until it comes up for a good deal. Don't give in to the spontaneous kind of like instant gratification thing, because it's a slippery slope and you'll end up having really bad credit. I love Yatagan as well. And what's great about Yatagan is it's still in production. Like, you don't have to worry about it. It's not discontinued, and you don't have to spend an arm and a leg on it, and it's still fabulous. Yeah, Yatagan's one of my favorites. Two of my favorite fragrances on my like top 10 are Caron's, Yatagan, and L'Etocien. Jane Daly she's a trip. I love her. Yeah, between having her and Super Jacob together, that was like the most fun. That was such a great live stream. Rive Gauche. Well, I have Rive Gauche, the original, which is this beautiful aldehydic floral from the early 70s, marketed to women originally. I don't have the Rive Gauche Pour Homme. I think it's nice. But this is another example of where I think, wow, that really just shot up in price, and it really wasn't worth that kind of money. So I think it's great, though. I think it's great. It's unfortunate that it was discontinued. It was an abject failure commercially. It barely even cracked the charts for sales, but it became a cult favorite. But there's a lot of fragrances similar to it, you know. But I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's a lovely one. It's just too bad it's no longer in production. Oh, thank you, Bilbo. Thanks, Bilbo. That brings us down to 5 coffees. I mean, we can get an extra coffee if somebody wants to just wrap it up and get a sample pack. You can buy 6 coffees and get a sample pack, or we can have 5 people buy a coffee each, and then we've reached our goal. Yeah, I can't choose with fragrances. I can never choose an absolute favorite. I can't just say, that's my number one. I don't even have a signature fragrance. So on Fragrantica, it says it's Abbé Rouge. It's not a signature. It's like it has such a big place in my heart. I was like, that seems like a good one to put there. But I could just as well put so many others there. I've often considered just like rotating and changing it up and keep people guessing on the Fragrantica profile, the shelf. Let's see if we've reached 45. We're at 9:05. Let's see if we got 45 likes. We're still at 40. Let's try to hit 45 likes before the end of the stream. I'll put on one more tune here. And I think this tune is not going to be on repeat. It's not going to be on loop. This will be the last tune that we play, but let's try this out. Let's try to do 45. We got 40 right now. We got 20 people tuned in. I want to know what 20 people are tuned in right now. We have about 10, 12 people in the chat. I'd love to hear from those 8 or 10 people who are quiet. Say hello. Don't be shy. Everybody here is friendly. So I was thinking for next season with the notes and accords, in addition to doing chypres and then florals, we'll get into woods. We'll get into spices. We'll get into incense as the season progresses. You tell them, Bilbo. Come on, don't be a cheapskate. Come on. I'm not even asking you to sign up for my Patreon because I don't have one. I don't really think that I couldn't dedicate myself to a Patreon subscription. I thought about doing it. I'm like, no. The coffees are enough. Thank you, Fernando. And Bilbo. The ones nearest and dearest to me in the fragrance live stream sphere. Oh, that would be an interesting chat to do for the last few minutes here. What do you think of what happened, pardon me, with the fragrance live stream realm? It seems like I'm one of the few people who's really still doing it regularly. I wanted to get some of your thoughts because many of you I've gotten to know through those different live streams. Let's see what you think of what's happened. Is it a good thing that they're not happening as much? Is it a bad thing? Are we grieving the loss of this whole subculture of fragrance live streamers? What do you think? Malachios Bulgari by Jacques Cavalier, perfumer of Rive Gauche, is really good. However, it's discontinued and overpriced too. Go figure. They got hit by the toxicity. Yeah. This is the thing. To be successful in having a live stream that is entertaining and pushes the envelope, and like I said, to be a provocateur is you kind of have to do it with a little bit of good taste and class. And when it gets a little messy, people get turned off. And people just don't want to see it. And when people start to air their dirty laundry publicly, people start to corral in toxic personalities who don't have anything of value to share and are mainly used as spectacles. If people are exploited because they may be neurodivergent or they may, be a unique and entertaining in their own way, but they're being exploited as sort of a spectacle. I was never for that. I never enjoyed it. I really, honestly, now I'm going to be a little bit confessional. I'm pretty embarrassed by some of the instances that I actually showed up on certain panels. I really am. I think that it kind of sullied my reputation a little bit. And I feel like I've had to really work hard to earn a reputation back. But the good thing that came out of it is I met like a lot of cool people as a result. Most of the people who really weren't actually on the panels, but they were in the chat. Not to say that some of the people on the panels were cool people who I've stayed in touch with, but yeah, it's just like I'd rather leave a lot of that in the past. So when people ask, are you never going to show up on one of those again? Well, first of all, they're not even really happening much anymore. But if they were, I'm good. Leave that in the past. That's my take on it. Well, that means a lot to me, Noah. I try to be kind. I try to be sensitive to other people too. Like, I don't want to be a jackass. Like, I hate when people get pretentious. That was my problem with some of the personalities in this community, right? Right from the jump. I'm the expert. I'm leading the way. I'm the one who's going to, be your expert and your professor. And give me a break. Like the egos, man. Like there's no hierarchy. And that's just what really bothered me. And that's what pissed me off. And that's how I ended up earning, part of it I was responsible for, but I ended up, creating antagonism because I just couldn't deal with, people, when I tried to kindly, educate them and correct them when they were flat out not saying things that were true, or they were incorrect, or, they were a little off on things, they would get so defensive. And I really regret taking it to the level of making it a spectacle. It was stupid. And I have to live with that. And I burned bridges as a result. But that doesn't change the fact that I was valid in thinking that there was a lot of things wrong with where that, the circle, that part of the community was going. And it just didn't feel right. And I had to, call out the bullshit. I just wish I could have handled it better. I didn't handle it too well, but that was the past. And, like I said, I hope to, just coexist, and I don't want enemies. I don't want people to see me as an enemy. I just, it's really, it is what it is, Yeah. And the toxicity, that's the thing. When you're away from it, it's sort of like you're detoxing, When I was within it, I started to get toxic. I started to do things that really weren't typical of me. Being overly outspoken, being mean-spirited, and saying things that are insensitive. Like, there's a difference between having opinions and airing your opinions on a live platform in a way that's really insensitive and crass and crude, But the thing is, even though I did that, I certainly wasn't the only one. And a lot of the people who were upset with me for doing that, they did a lot of that themselves to each other and to me. So nobody's really a saint. A lot of people were backstabbing and overly opinionated and saying hurtful things. And, it felt good to distance myself from that. And I feel like that, the little YouTube channel that I have with a devoted audience is a nice little corner for me, and I'm happy right where I am. And I'm going to be, it's approaching 2 years since I started, June 10th. And I hope to get 2,000 subscribers. I doubt I'll get 300 in less than a month. But I think it's a good following, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not as prolific as many others are, because I believe that I'd rather be at 100% and to give something that's like really worth. I was going to say consume, but that sounds so transactional. Worth watching and worth enjoying, rather than just rambling on. So that's why I do things, once a week, if that. So I'm glad for all of you who have stuck with me from the beginning, and those who are new to me. It means a great deal to me, because this is a really fun outlet. So with that said, we'll do one last count of the likes. I think I'll be happy with whatever I have. I don't know. It says 39 now. I guess I upset somebody again, but that's fine. It's back down to 39. Well, no, it's back up to 40 again. I don't know what's going on. Maybe that's just like a little bug on the YouTube app on my phone. Thank you very much, Tom. That means the world to me. And thanks, Fernando. Yeah, that's what I had to do. And I'm glad that I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah, light and entertaining. And on topic, too. I mean, most of the time it's actually on topic. People say, like, nobody wants to hear about perfume for 2 hours. Oh, yes, they do. And they'll watch the archive streams as well. And I am grateful for all of the feedback and all the appreciation I get. I get these really kind messages on Fragrantica. People say some wonderful things about what I share, and I'm just humbled by that. That's something to really be happy about. Like, it just means a lot to me. Thank you very much, Pat. Yes, quality over quantity. And with that being said, I think I'm going to wrap up for now. It's been wonderful sharing this time with you all. Remember, I'm going to be back next Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with Alex the Perfume Temple and Rachel K. Ng. We're going to be doing a green episode of Effluvium, so I hope to see all of you there. And until then, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Be well.